it's so long. There's so many ways to now listen or see us. It's impressive.
We're everywhere you want to be.
It just makes me chuckle because you start and then it's like go down an entire list.
And I'm working on my posture, so you can spare me those comments on Twitter. I'm trying, man. I'm sucking in the belly. I'm sitting up straight. I'm trying my best.
And I don't fault you one bit. I've got the same exact problem.
And if you're watching right now, you'll see this greasy paper bag here. Yeah. If you're watching at YouTube, that's because later today, Danny Cunningham and I are going to have some cluster fun, and anybody else on the Score North staff who wants to jump in. The LA Times, they had their fast food fries power rankings, and I got some real problems with you people. And we'll get to that later on today at scorenorth.com.
This is the worst.
These are 5 guys, by the way.
This is the worst excuse to get fat that I've ever heard. Like you're actually invoking research.
Says the guy who's on a diet right now.
No, I know, but
You're just mad you can't participate. That's the problem.
But I love how
the problem.
I love how these guys, especially you, find a way to incorporate a big helping of fries by saying this is for the cluster fun show.
It's a medium helping of fries, all right? And I think this is serious business. And plus, I got some real problems with that
Craig,
list.
And you put this bag in front of me.
Right
and you know how good
you.
it smells?
I'm sorry.
I hate you right now.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to move the bag?
I'm bitter about a lot of things.
Should I move the bag?
Fries are like the one thing that puts out like the most powerful aroma.
Like
it was like you just put a bag right in the middle of a table, like what you have over there, and it just engulfs like your whole nose and senses. And
the hardest thing is the car ride. Like when you're like, I'm not gonna eat any of these till I get home. I'm gonna sit down like a human at a table.
And if you have one, it's over.
It's over.
Yeah,
They're gone by the time you get home.
It's like chips.
Yeah.
If you buy a bag of chips at the store and on the ride home, break it open and have one. Done. It's over.
What was the slogan? Was it Pringles that had the once you pop, you can't stop?
Yeah. That goes for any fried potato product. I mean, I'm glad that they found the slogan for their particular fried potato product, but that is any fried potato product. So some cluster fun coming your way later today at scorenorth.com. We call it cluster fun, but this is serious business in my eyes. Fry rankings are serious business, Judd.
I don't blame you.
Okay.
I'm just bitter.
All right.
Because I wish I could participate, but I'm too big of a fatty right now.
You can have a fry.
Okay, Manny.
In the interest of research,
is that not the stupidest thing that anybody has said in the studio ever? And people have said a lot of stupid things, including me. You can have a fry, Manny. You can have a fry. What self-respecting adult male?
You have a point.
Who has a 24-pack or whatever my gut would be called?
I'm gonna admit that was pretty stupid.
You can have a fry.
That was a stupid thing for me to say.
What size fry is that, Ronnie?
It's a medium fry.
Yeah, so you can't share those.
From 5 guys.
If it's a large, you could probably sacrifice a fry.
But sorry,
I don't want him to share.
If it's anything below a large, you got to be greedy with it.
Don't share. I don't want you to share. I don't want any of your stinking fries.
You can't share. You can't offer it. Nope. Nope.
All right. You know what else is serious business? The Minnesota Vikings. That's what we're here to discuss every day at noon on Purple Daily on Score North on 1500 and scorenorth.com. And Judd and I have decided for the Judd and Rami editions of Purple Daily that we do an off-season position by position breakdown of your Minnesota Vikings. So each show for the next couple weeks or so, we'll pick a position group and give our thoughts, our analysis, our evaluations of said position group. And we decided to start where you always start when building a football team, and that's at the quarterback position. And that, of course, means that we discuss Kirk Cousins.
Yes, it does.
Judd,
yes,
your thoughts on the Vikings and the quarterback position, sir?
My thoughts on the Vikings and the quarterback position are we are disappointed. I think it would be impossible to say that you weren't disappointed by the results from that position. Not statistically, okay? The statistics look good, but certainly 8-7-1 is not what you were expecting when you decided to move on from Keenum, who we'll talk about because there's certainly news involving him out of Denver. And transition to Cousins with a 3-year, fully guaranteed $84 million contract. But nonetheless, Kirk Cousins is coming back as your starter. You hope for far more from him in 2019. But this position,
do you though?
This position, you hope for far more intangibles. You hope for far more effective play in games when it matters. You hope that he could do a lot more to put the team on his back in games like the last game against the Bears, where they completely collapsed, including him.
Mm-hmm.
So statistically, that's the thing about this discussion is statistically, you probably can't say, well, there should be great improvement, because if you're a fantasy football player, the stats were pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you watch the games and you look for the intangibles and you look for the potential leadership that you want from that position, you hope for more. Now, you have to be careful here, because I am not saying, and he is not capable of putting this team on his back consistently week in, week out. He is not ever going to turn into a top 5 QB, and I don't think he's top 10. I think on his best days, he's just outside that group probably. But you know what we need to do here, and we probably need to start to do it now. We need to hit the reset button for what the expectations were for this position when Cousins was signed, and what this team designed it to be. This team is still designed, and as long as Zim is here, it's going to stay this way. As long as Mike is head coach, with defense first, with a quarterback and an offense that's propped up enough and good enough not to screw up games and cost you games, and can be efficient enough to, let's say, score on average. What's a fair amount of points to average per game offensively with this defense? 24 points? 24 points.
I think 24 to 27 in today's NFL is fair.
As of today, what we need to stop doing for anybody that thinks that Cousins was going to carry this team consistently, and I'm not saying that he should be absolved from potentially winning a game or two. He can do that. But we need to go back to defense first, offense that's good enough, and most importantly, too, as a starting point to me, a quarterback who doesn't make mistakes. Keenum was jettisoned because of the fear, and rightfully so, and we saw Case go back to being Case in 2018 with the Broncos. He was jettisoned because of the fear that his mistakes were going to be this team's undoing offensively. Well, Cousins came in and made mistakes as well that he can't afford to make. Protection of the football is absolutely imperative. You cannot be fumbling. You have to begin, and I don't know how you get here, but you have to begin to start to feel pressure in the pocket. You can't just be stripped and be like, oh, that's too bad. But I do think the reset with this team needs to be what it was previous or right around the time that Cousins was signed, which is this is a defense-first team, and the quarterback needs to be good enough to help you win games. But if you're going to go to, well, the quarterback week in, week out has to win you games, Rami, that's simply not realistic.
And that's pretty much exactly what I was just about to say, Judd, which is that to me, there are two types of quarterbacks in the NFL, and there are variances within each category. There's better and worst within each category. But to me, there's two kinds of quarterbacks in the NFL for successful football teams. You have quarterbacks that win games for you, and you have quarterbacks that don't lose games for you. And like I said, there are variances within that. If you ask me, Kirk Cousins is one of the latter. He's a quarterback, or at least you hope he's one of the latter, a quarterback who doesn't lose games for you. But to me, he's one of the better quarterbacks in that category. When you look at some of the statistics and the numbers that he can throw up, and when you talk about statistics and numbers, Judd, and you say, you know, if you were following Kirk Cousins from strictly a fantasy football standpoint and just looking at box scores, you would think he had a pretty good season with the Vikings this year, and you would think he's been a pretty good quarterback for the majority of his starting NFL career. The numbers maybe overblow it a little bit, but for me, Kirk Cousins did not fall short of expectations. I like to think that doing what we do for a living, I at least look a little bit deeper than fantasy stats and box scores, even if it is guys who I don't watch on a week-to-week basis. And watching Kirk Cousins for his years in Washington, I wasn't surprised by anything that I saw this year in Minnesota. He had about the type of season that I would expect when he came to the Vikings. And I know you don't do this, Judd. Maybe you're doing it subconsciously, and I know a lot of other people do this, is you're judging him on the money. You're judging him on the contract that he got, and I don't think that's fair. That's not how this thing works. He got that money because he was the number one quarterback on a free agent market in a given year in a quarterback-starved league. So that was the market for Kirk Cousins in that particular offseason. If you're judging him strictly off the expectations that you had for Kirk Cousins, I think he delivered about what you should have expected from him. What did he do? What did he not do this year that you expected him to do this year or not do well?
When I watched him on a weekly basis, his protection of the ball fell short. The intangibles fell way short. The ability to lead was not there, which is disappointing. But I'll throw this back on the team now and say with the hire of Kubiak and a change in the offensive philosophy, it's upon the team now to prop him up as much as possible. So the shortcomings are not, if you throw him back out there as the quarterback that we saw in 2018, it's not going to change. The statistics will be there, the intangibles will not. And so now it becomes upon Spielman, Zimmer, the coaching staff, Kubiak now, to look at all of those things that didn't go exactly right and say, how can we gloss over them and make them as good as possible? And that's where this is on the team now. That's where, because you can't go to Cousins now. He's too old. You can't just say change, right?
Right.
I do need him to protect the ball. He can't be fumbling. I don't know how you're going to get to a spot because I don't think he has the ability, and some guys have this and some guys don't. I don't think he has that ability to feel pressure, which he should and doesn't.
I'll agree with you.
Okay, but this is a team that now 2 years ago went 13-3 and had Super Bowl aspirations and went out and signed Cousins because they saw him, probably very rightfully so, as an upgrade on Keenum. So now it's on them to say, okay, we brought him in here, and the Vikings were probably as guilty as the fan base of saying, we're paying you, go do it. But it's not going to work that way. It doesn't. So whatever the problems are, it's on the team too to make sure that you address those problems and its ancillary stuff around Kirk as much as possible.
The other part of it too is, the contract, listen, he's not worth the amount of money that they're paying him, but the reality is they're still paying him this kind of money. And because he's making this amount of money, now we're looking at, on the other side of the ball, them having to sacrifice some guys and let some guys go in order to help him, to your point, Judd, help prop him up, surround him with a better offensive line, surround him, add a couple more weapons in the passing game, all of those things. They're going to have to do those things in the draft, in free agency possibly. And because he's making so much money, whether he's worth it or not, that's not even a debate anymore. But he is still making $28 million a year. Mm-hmm. And that puts them in a position where they have to be really creative with the rest of their salary, how it's being allocated out, because now we're talking about having to let Anthony Barr go. We're talking about are they going to move Riley Reif to guard? If they do, they may have to restructure that contract. They may have to let Mike Remmers go. They're going to have to make some sacrifices and let some other guys go just so that they can have enough money to go out and help prop Kirk Cousins up even more.
And this also comes back to the incredibly important discussion of, okay, now what's your scheme? What's your coaching like? They did the DeFilippo hiring did nobody any favors. They basically, it is mind-boggling to me if you go back and at the time we didn't see this, but now it's crystal clear. But the team is paid to see this. It's mind-boggling that they didn't say, okay, this guy is an upgrade, but only by this much. And by the way, we paid a lot because that's the going market rate. But now we have to get him the right coaching. We've got to get him the right scheme. And they didn't say that. They just made assumptions, which is really weird. But that's what has to be fixed now. And that starts with Kubiak. That starts with the coaching. That starts with what are you going to give him? Because this does not go back to a conversation of this ever being an offensive first team, right? This goes back to a conversation of being, how can you score 24 points per game? Because you still need your defense to be very, very good.
Right.
But you're consistent enough offensively, and this also comes back to you don't make mistakes. You don't throw picks. You don't fumble. You can't have your offense sabotage your games. You just can't.
Agree, 100%.
Yeah.
To me, that was, if you look at the Vikings as a whole, the major shortcoming this year, the thing that stopped them from reaching their full potential was less Kirk Cousins and more the defense. If you're asking me who fell shorter of expectations, Kirk Cousins or the Vikings defense, to me it's the Vikings defense.
Vikings defense, I thought first 4 games was very disappointing, then got good. But there were a lot of things that took place offensively too that cost you games. And the 1 or 2 times that you needed Kirk Cousins to desperately step up and say, "Boys, I got this," he couldn't do it. So you've got to put him in position now. When you need that, where he can. And is the answer yes? I got no clue, but at least put yourself in position to find out.
Now you got to put yourself in positions to where that pick 6 against New Orleans on that Sunday night game doesn't happen. Because that when that play happened, that broke their backs for that night. They had no chance to win the game after that happened. Mm-hmm. They got to find a way to avoid stuff like that from happening.
Mm-hmm. And the Buffalo game needs to be a blip.
Yeah.
Not a game that you talk about for months. The Buffalo game in the Patriots world is you remember that game way back when? And it's a blip. In the Vikings world, it became a boulder.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that
shows you the momentum the momentum of a team and what it can do to an NFL season, good or bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know if they can get there or not, but if this is going to work, and Kirk's got 3 years now, so this is not long. If this is going to work as intended, there need to be a lot of tweaks and adjustments made to put yourself in position to find out.
So we've spent this segment talking about the current Vikings quarterback in Kirk Cousins. There is news on former Vikings quarterback Case Keenum, and we'll get into that and some other NFL news and notes right after this. You're listening to Purple Daily on Score North on 1500 and scorenorth.com.
It's Phil Mackey here from the all-new Score North on 1500 and scorenorth.com. We've made it easier than ever to find our team-centric Minnesota sports podcast. Wherever you subscribe to podcasts, just search Score North, that's SKOR, and you'll find Score North Vikings, for instance, which includes Purple Daily, Purple Podcast, and Vikings Ventline. Score North Wolves includes Raised by Wolves, Myron Metcalf on Hoops, and more. Score North Twins includes Touch 'em All, Royce on Baseball, and more, and so on. Just search Score North, SKOR, wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Hey, who are you? Score North.
What?
Score North.
What?
Minnesota sports.
What?
Anytime.
What?
Anywhere.
What?
ScoreNorth.com.
All right, guys. Valentine's is tomorrow, and if you've been procrastinating, if you're still looking for a great gift, don't panic. You can head to the Pandora Jewelry Stores in Mall of America, Rosedale, and Ridgedale Centers. Pandora has great gift ideas, including bracelets, charms, rings, earrings, and necklaces. And even better, they have a helpful staff that will help you pick the perfect gift and even wrap it up for you to give to her. And best of all, you will look like an MVP. Shop the Pandora Jewelry Stores at Mall of America, Rosedale, and Ridgedale Centers. They're open tonight until 9 p.m.
Are you ready for a focused, targeted investment strategy to deal with this upcoming market volatility? If you are, give me a call at 952-925-5608. I'm Josh Arnold, Mr. Money Talk. I'll give you straight talk, not sugar-coated advice, if you sit down with me for a 48-minute, no obligation consultation to review your portfolio. With volatility continuing in this marketplace over the next year, you owe it to yourself to sit down with Mr. Money Talk. Do give me a call at 952-925-5608. You always get straight talk, not sugar-coated advice. That's 952-925-5608.
Investment advisor services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC, a registered advisor in the state of Minnesota. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk.
Phil Mackey here for Luther Brookdale Toyota. Hey, if you've got a service light on in your vehicle, and I actually do right now, to be honest with you, bring it into my buds at Luther Brookdale Toyota, and they'll turn that light off, tell you what it means, and give you a free, no-obligation estimate on repair. Luther Brookdale Toyota Service Department is the best. They've been helping my family for 30-plus years. They'll make sure you're running right and running safe. Luther Brookdale Toyota, 694 and Brooklyn Boulevard, and LutherBrookdaleToyota.com.
Don't miss Purchase Guns N' Roses 5 at Osseo Gun Club, Saturday, February 16th from 10 to 4. Meet factory reps from Springfield Armory, Walther, F&N, H&K, Vista Outdoor, and more. Try the latest pistols for free with ammo purchase. Register to win firearms and other spectacular prizes. You could be a grand prize winner and receive a Citizen's Watch from S.R. Hoskins Jewelry. 1 dozen roses compliments of Infinity Floral and a bunt cake from Nothing Bunt Cakes of Maple Grove. Other prizes include firearms, a Smith & Wesson 380 EZ, Springfield Armory pistol, H&K and Walther pistol, and more. Drawings held every hour, and the first 100 ladies through the door receive a complimentary flower from Infinity Floral. So plan to be there. Guns N' Roses 5, Saturday, February 16th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Osseo Gun Club in downtown Osseo. Visit OsseoGunClub.com.
In addition to the pure joy of listening to the radio, one of life's pleasures is watching TV.
Watch TV.
Television. Watch TV. Powerful Performance Premium Picture, TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand, proud sponsor of the Score North TCL Broadcast Studios.
Raise your frosty mug. Listen to The Beer Show every Thursday night at 6. Join Elevated Beer, Wine, and Spirits as they make a beer run with a different special guest from the craft beer scene. The Beer Show, Thursday nights at 6.
How to like beer.
On Score North.
Score North.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Minnesota sports. Anytime, anywhere. ScoreNorth.com.
And this portion of Purple Daily is brought to you by Fratelloni's Ace Hardware and Garden Stores, proud sponsors of The Beer Show, heard Thursday evenings right here on Score North.
Flacco stepping up and throwing deep down the far sideline. Caught! Into the end zone, touchdown, Jacoby Jones! How does that happen in the Denver secondary?
That highlight courtesy of the Baltimore Ravens radio network, right, Manny?
No, NFL and CBS.
You are.
Come on.
You are
That's
0
Greg
for the
Gumbel
week.
on the call.
You are 0 for the week.
This is Purple Daily. I'm Rami. That's Judd Zulgad, Manny on the other side of the glass. And why are we playing Joe Flacco highlights from CBS? Because there is a movement in the NFL today, and it concerns former Vikings quarterback Case Keenum, as the Broncos have reportedly traded for Joe Flacco and will pull the plug on Case Keenum after just 1 year after giving him a deal worth up to $36 million, $25 million of that guaranteed. And so now we have a changing of the guard at quarterback in Denver, Judd.
Yeah, so the trade can officially be completed or processed, as reported by ESPN's Adam Schefter, March 13th, which is when the NFL league year begins. But this is just another reminder about the crapshoot and how difficult it is to identify quarterbacks in this league for some. And the incredible thing here is we are talking about, in this case, one of the great quarterbacks of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
John Elway, Hall of Fame quarterback, 2 Super Bowls, tremendous talent. And look now at, since he took that job in Denver, how many times he has swung at QBs. Now, Peyton, he got Peyton, and Peyton won a Super Bowl for him. But I remind you, that was not exactly Peyton in Peyton's prime. That was a Peyton who knew how to get through the season with a great defense. But for as much as we might criticize the Vikings about Cousins and the decision to give him that contract and sign him ultimately, the fact was the Vikings were right on one thing, and that's that Case Keenum had a great 2017 pop-up year. Bradford got hurt in game 1. Keenum came in and started, 14 games played in 15. The team goes 13-3, wins a playoff game. And the Vikings, rightfully so, said, this guy is basically a career backup. It ain't going to last. And they were exactly right. But this gets back to, I've got a list right here of potential starting quarterbacks from 2018 who might be out of jobs now. It includes Case Keenum, Tannehill in Miami, Flacco now being replaced and traded by Baltimore, Blake Bortles, thank God, in Jacksonville, Eli, the Giants, maybe, don't know, but he certainly could be. And then I believe that Bruce Arians says he's going to give it a try with Jameis Winston in Tampa Bay, but I'm not convinced of that yet. But the point being is the Vikings problem is a problem held by many franchises, and that's the conundrum of trying to identify a quarterback who can be the guy long-term.
It's the hardest position to scout in all of sports. And part of that is just how much rests on that guy when you talk about the success of a franchise, but it really just does seem like the hardest position to evaluate in all of professional sports, Judd. And maybe that is just these teams hope so much that these guys will be the savior of the organization that they heap these expectations on them. And some of the expectations are inherent with how high quarterbacks are taken in drafts, with how much money they make. We run into that here with Kirk Cousins. And I think sometimes those things throw off the expectations of not just fans, but I think even sometimes front offices fall for that. They want to believe so badly that this is the guy and that this is the savior for a franchise that they maybe put too much expectation into a guy and want a little bit too much out of him and more than what he can even give, more than what he's got in him. I think that NFL franchises a lot of the time are expecting too much from their quarterbacks.
And the Flacco thing is really interesting because he's basically being pushed out of the door in Baltimore because they think that he's basically cooked.
Right.
That's why they went and drafted Lamar Jackson and evidently started him in a playoff game and were very reluctant to even go to Joe Flacco in that playoff game when Lamar Jackson was struggling. And now I look at Denver and I say, okay, you're trading for Flacco. Because I thought Denver would say, okay, well, we're going to try and swing for the fences again on a young quarterback. They got the 10th pick in the draft.
Right.
But now with them trading for Flacco, that makes me think that they think that he's going to be
the savior,
their guy
right,
for the next 3 to 5 years or whatever. Because if they're going to draft a quarterback, why not just roll in with Keenum and let Keenum be the bridge guy until the young guy's ready?
But think about this. We're talking about one of the great quarterbacks of all time who literally now every year after the Broncos gets done goes to the bargain bin basement and says, I'm going to try and find one.
Yeah.
I'm going to,
Brock Osweiler.
Yeah, exactly. But Case Keenum.
Yeah.
I think that Elway has the same problem now, and I can't believe I'm saying this, that Spielman has, which is it's sort of this gun shy, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'll just pay this one a ton. Hopefully it works. And with Spielman, I'm not surprised because I say, okay, it's Rick. I don't think that Rick has ever, because I think that Teddy was more Norv and Mike's guy. But I don't think that Rick has ever really hit on a quarterback and done a great job there. But that's Rick, and so you're not shocked. But in the case of Elway, case of John Elway, going out now year after year, and it's like, okay, now it's going to be Peyton. Now I'm going to try and draft one. Now it's going to be Case Keenum. Now it's going to be Flacco. He just keeps taking swings, and this is a guy who was as good at that position in his era as almost anybody.
And I wonder if completely whiffing on Paxton Lynch has just got him scared now to even draft a guy, to even think about drafting a guy, because he doesn't want to, like I said, they got the 10th pick in the draft. Maybe he's just thinking, I don't want to invest that pick on a quarterback again and potentially miss and set the franchise back even further. But it's like,
and he's got a defensive coordinator too now.
Yeah.
He's got a Zimmer, hey, we're going to draft my defensive guy with a 10th pick.
Yeah.
So you might be right, Manny.
But we see this in sports. It's not unique to John Elway, guys who are great at what they do on the playing field, but not necessarily great at either teaching or evaluating players. Look at Michael Jordan in Charlotte and how many times he's missed on talent evaluations and draft picks and free agent signings.
Remember when Magic Johnson tried coaching the Lakers?
Yes.
In the mid-90s?
I tried to forget it, Manny, but yes.
It was a disaster.
I was just going to go with the Rami line. Yes, I do, and I've tried to forget it.
That and when he hosted a late-night talk show where
I remember that. The Magic Hour. I remember that, yes.
But the incredible thing with Elway is aside from bringing in a broken down Peyton, which worked, he has swung and missed just continue. Like you would think that John Elway would stumble on one, right?
Right.
Like that he would, okay, I found one.
Right.
He hasn't, this is, to me, the quarterback position is so intriguing and interesting because we point at the successes, right? Pat Mahomes, of course now the Chiefs came up in that draft and got him. It makes perfect sense. Let me refer you, gentlemen, though, and this is my favorite quarterback draft because this shows you
when Counselor Judd puts his glasses
difficult. On. Yeah. Permission to treat as hostile. Okay, I'm going to go to my Jack McCoy here. And I'm going to give you guys an example of how difficult I believe it is to identify and be right on a quarterback. The 2011 National Football League draft, all right?
Mm-hmm.
First pick in that draft, Cam Newton, Carolina. Worked out just fine. I mean, Cam might have his faults, but he's Cam. He's fine. After that, though, it becomes what I like to call the musical quarterback draft. Number 8 in that draft to Tennessee, a player who began, I believe, that draft year as the presumed top pick overall, then in projections fell as low as like 20th, got up to 8. Jake Locker, now retired, taken by the Titans. All right? Number 10 in that draft, another guy who at some point in time came in as the guy who was going to be taken first overall, and then his value plummeted, rightfully so, career backup, but taken at the time by Jacksonville, 10th, Blaine Gabbert. J.J. Watt, just for reference, went with the next pick, 11th overall to Houston. Taken 12th overall, the desperate Minnesota Vikings, Christian Ponder.
Oof.
All right.
Oof.
Then we continue to go through that draft.
Why are you hurting people?
The 30, but here's what makes it interesting. The 35th pick in that draft. So second round pick by the Bengals,
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
Who, if you redrafted, if you restructured this thing now, is a surefire first round pick. I know he's not great, but I just gave you
better than all the other guys.
I gave you some garbage.
Yeah.
And then immediately taken after Dalton at 36 by the 49ers, Colin Kaepernick. So that draft, to me, if you were to ever teach a college course, if someone was to say, oh, it's easy. Yeah, what the Chiefs did was perfect. You got to do that. So for anybody that says, and this is why I think you take flyers on QBs, but this is what makes it so interesting and difficult. This is a college course on the difficulty of being right here.
Yeah, it is, if not the hardest, one of the hardest positions to evaluate in all of sports. And you're talking about drafting or starting or who's better, who's worse. It is, if not the hardest, one of the hardest things to evaluate in all of pro sports.
And if you're wrong,
it can break you. It can break you as an organization.
Oh yeah.
But with this news that Case Keenum is out in Denver, and going back to our position by position breakdown of the Vikings, and we broke down the quarterback position in the first segment, I don't know if this constitutes as reckless speculation. Let me try that again.
Reckless speculation.
Judd, do you have any interest whatsoever in bringing back Case Keenum to back up Kirk Cousins for your Minnesota Vikings?
I would rather take a chance on Kyler Murray if he's there at 18.
Oh my God!
Then I would bring back Case Keenum. No, I have none. It was lightning in a bottle. It was magic. It was the greatest summer of a teenage boy's life. He met the girl of his dreams, but guess what? They went to college. It ended.
But you wouldn't want him back as like a backup?
Not really, no.
You don't think he's a better backup than like Trevor Siemian?
I do, but the problem is it would turn into a complete circus. I would rather, if I'm going to freak out Kirk, I would prefer it be a young QB who just might replace Kirk.
Yeah.
Case Keenum, unless Kirk gets hurt, Case is not going to play. I see where you're going, and I'm not saying it's dumb.
I see what you're saying.
I would probably be, I think it was a once in a lifetime season for Case. And if he's your backup, that's going to bring back a lot of questions about, hey, Kirk Cousins struggled in this game with the start Case. I just wouldn't want to do it.
Because the moment
I believe in distractions, but no, I do. Like
you embrace distractions.
No. I believe that distractions for sports teams
are real.
If they can be avoided, should be.
Right.
And I think Case Keenum is a distraction.
And the moment, if they did bring Case back, the moment Kirk Cousins throws his first pick of 2019, people are going to be clamoring for Case Keenum to be put into the game.
I think you guys are right, because correct me if I'm wrong, still sort of the new guy around here, but I get the sense that Case Keenum is held in high regard by Vikings fans. Because people, and it's not
higher regard than he should be.
It's not unique to Minnesota, but fan bases love an overachiever. And Case Keenum overachieved in his time in Minnesota. So I get the sense that some Vikings fans still sort of hold a candle for this guy.
I would agree completely.
And if you bring that into the locker room, to back up your $28 million quarterback, it's not going to take long for the natives to get restless when Kirk Cousins fumbles or throws an interception and start the rallying cry for bring back Case.
And the other thing that factors into what you just said, which I believe to be true, is this. I believe that there are probably people who play on the Vikings offense who hold Keenum in higher regard than Kirk Cousins. And I don't need that.
So you think it goes beyond the fan perception?
I would not be surprised if there's a few guys, perhaps number 19. I would not be surprised if there's a few guys who hold. Can't
imagine who you're talking about.
And Case was a likable guy, and I think Case was sort of more, in my estimation, a surfer, laid back dude. But I think he could lead, and so yeah, I believe that the presence of Keenum as a backup quarterback with a healthy Cousins would open a can of worms I don't want to open.
And back to the reality of this move that the Broncos made today. This just came across my timeline. The Action Network, which is, I mean, as far as sports betting follows, are one of the more legitimate sports betting follows that you can have. They just tweeted out Broncos Super Bowl odds before the Flacco trade, 60-1. Judd, what would you say the Broncos Super Bowl odds are after the Flacco trade?
I wouldn't have moved them a ton. I'd 57-1.
It's probably 60-1, isn't it?
60-1.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't have moved them.
It went from 60-1 to 60-1.
Does Flacco have a thing left at this point?
I've never been a huge Joe Flacco guy myself.
Well, he had the great playoff run
2012
that year. What, like 12 touchdowns, no picks, or something ridiculous, or 70.
That highlight that we played at the start of the segment, that's from that playoff game against the Broncos.
Okay. So he had that playoff run, which was fantastic, but has he, and I'm not even saying he's a bad quarterback. I just don't remember, and I might be wrong about this, an extended period of play beyond that where you said to yourself, I love that guy.
That playoff run, that's what got him paid.
Yeah. Which, and he should be.
I mean,
more power to
good
him.
For him. I mean, he won a Super Bowl and was the MVP, but that's basically that 4-game stretch where he was unbelievable is what got him that big contract.
And he's had some neck problems and some back problems and things like that. So it's going to be very interesting to me though if the Broncos now with Flacco try and go to a Vikings like blueprint, which is we've got a former defensive coordinator as our coach. We're going to try and be again lights out on defense and good enough on offense.
We have more NFL news, notes, and rumors to run through on Purple Daily, including one that also just came across my timeline about a star wide receiver and him potentially getting traded, and it's not the one who's been in the headlines the last few days demanding a trade.
Well, you're good.
Talk about that next on Purple Daily on Score North on 1500 and scorenorth.com.
The heart wants what it wants. Minnesota.